Hey guys, welcome to this vidcast. It's a conversation that I had with fellow footballer David Wheeler about all things climate, environment, football, food. You name it, we went there and we still didn't cover everything. Hence why it's a two-part video. Unfortunately, we had to film at night because of our schedules, so the quality of the film isn't great, but I hope you stay tuned because David dropped some amazing stats, including a way that you can times your impact, any individual impact that you do, you can times it by 21 by doing this action. So stay tuned to find out what that is and how we can all make a difference in the world around us. On with the show. Okay, welcome to this Champions for Earth vidcast. I'm Katie Rude and I have the special honor today to be joined by David Wheeler, our 2022 Champion for Earth. David plays for League One Wycombe Wanderers, and he's been instrumental in helping the club increase their environmental practices, as well as being named the first ever sustainability champion for the PFA. I've also had the honor of working closely with David with Football for Future and trying to make sustainability cool and just change the culture around football and the environment. So I've known David for a while, but we've really had the chance to actually sit down and catch up and talk about the things that we're passionate about. So we might as well crack on with it. Hi, David. Welcome.
Hey,
Thank you for joining.
yeah. Thanks for the intro. I'm not sure I deserved all of those good comments, but cheers for that. And really nice to just sit down and chat. Really, like you say, known each other for ages, and had a rush chat at Glastonbury when we did our thing, Football for Future. But it'd be nice to sort of get into it a bit more.
Yeah, that was sick, isn't it? We've actually got quite a lot of kind of background interweaving, don't we? We both played at Lewis. I think you grew up there.
Yeah, the Pantera. Yeah, no, it's oh yeah, always going to be fond of Lewis. Like, I mean, I think it's kind of weird in a way how um, progressive and like sort of it's so close to everything I believe in, like what they're doing there. And it's kind of strange that it's all happened since I've left, pretty much. But obviously, like really cool to see because in these circles, they keep coming up, and it's like, oh yeah, it's my hometown club. Like it's just like really
Yeah.
nice.
So those who don't know about Lewis FC, Lewis Equality FC is their brand, but it's more than equality. They're a community-owned football club in a small town on the south coast of England, and I had the pleasure, shall we say, of living there for 2.5 years and being a part of this community and this club that wants to do things differently and show the world that football doesn't have to just be about what happens on the pitch, although that is the primary focus. There's still so much more that a football club can give to the society around it and the community they can build. And with that ethos, they've managed to attract a fan base across the world. And they just signed a big sponsorship with Nike, which I'm sure will revolutionize the club. And they're just showing how you can do things differently with football. And it's pretty revolutionary, isn't it, David? But it makes so much sense when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of all. He always come back to sort of chicken and egg argument with women's football. I think about do they need do the the women's game need to kind of like bring the fans in before the investment comes, or does the investment come and then the fans start? Like it's always that one. It's kind of an easy cop out to say, oh well, there's not enough crowd, so why it's not a profitable thing. But obviously Lewis have shown that they're kind of already like on par. And hopefully like both men's and the women's team can progress like and go up the leagues, because that's like the ultimate success story. But I think it's already shown how positive it can be.
Well, it's the rare case in football too, where actually the women's team is lifting up the men's team because the women's teams are in the championship, whereas the men I think are in seventh division almost, or like the southern division.
Yeah, I think they're step three. So yeah, Isthmian League. Yeah.
Yeah, so the women are doing well, getting the club's name out there and showing what's possible, and they're getting that support. And I think then they're sharing that with the men as well. But
Yeah,
obviously, they'd be a whole lot richer too if the FA Cup prize money and stuff was equal. But that's a whole nother conversation.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like you said with the women's sport as well, and the investment, I think we're seeing a lot of that at the World Cup now as well, especially around England and how well they've done at the Euros. And I mean, for me, it's been really special too because I first came over to England in 2012 as a fresh faced, naive 18-year-old, thinking I could make the big time. But it was a worthwhile experience, but the league just wasn't set up to support somebody like me at that time. And kind of went home with my tail between my legs, thinking like, wow, I wasn't ready for that experience. But I hope one day that I would be able to be supported by that league. And yeah, to see the growth in the game now has been amazing. But I think as footballers, especially the journeys we go on to get to where we are, it's never linear, is it? And I know that
No.
you've had a fair journey in your club environments as well. And I just wondered if you could share a bit about where it started and how you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I was always like mad on football. Always, any given moment I'd be kicking a ball up against the wall or up against the fence. And so yeah, and I got into clubs at local clubs at an early age, playing five-a-side and eight-a-side and stuff. And then got picked up by Brighton when I was about 10, I think. And was there from like 10 till about 16. And I got released at 16, so I didn't get offered a YTS, it was called back then, like a scholarship. And so that's when I ended up going to Lewis. And it kind of saved me to a large extent because I was kind of so shocked and broken really by that experience because I guess it was like the first time I'd been really rejected in something that I thought I was really good at. So it like really hit my confidence. But then off the back of going to Lewis, I then played in the National League Premier when I was like 18, I think, maybe 17, 18. And then, yeah, played a few seasons in the Conference South, and then signed, went to uni in between and did my sports science degree. Um, and then signed for Exeter. Had 4 good years there. Um, and then signed for QPR in the Championship. And then had 2 loan spells at Portsmouth in League One and MK Dons in League Two, and then signed for Wickham. Got promoted back to the Championship, then got relegated back to League One, then lost in the playoff final to go back to the Championship, and now we're trying to get back to the Championship. That's my career in a nutshell, basically.
So you think you found a bit of a home at Wycombe Wanderers?
Yeah, it's my 5th season now, and soon I'll have been here for longer than I was at Exeter, which is a really strange thought because it felt like I was there in a good way for ages. So yeah, no, I'm really at home here. It's one of those clubs that's kind of quite a friendly, quite homely club, very welcoming, and like it's allows you kind of to be who you are, which is really nice. Which is not definitely not the same in a lot of places I've been.
No, it's definitely not a given, is it,
No.
around football? And I think that's a challenge. I think for a lot of athletes is to find an environment where not only they're pushed physically, mentally, but also feel like they're safe and they can express themselves a whole lot. So
Mm.
I think it's quite a rarity actually to find that environment. But do you think it also comes into like you have to create it a bit yourself as well?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, like you've kind of got to believe that you're the master of your own destiny to a large extent, and that you control, the whole control the controllables thing. You were talking about how sort of I've had an impact in the intro at Wickham and the PFA, and essentially like it's kind of just nagging and being annoying like on a regular basis to the people that can actually make a difference. So yeah, whether it be the fit officials or directors or owners or whatever, it's just constantly like just being on at people all the time. To the point where there's some staff members that have said like they're borderline like close to blocking me like because I messaged them so much about and they're saying like we do have other things to be getting on with, like selling tickets and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. So yeah, it's just being a nag to a large extent. But I guess like it's that's the responsibility and the privilege of being in power. You make those decisions, and I feel like if I was in that position and someone was nagging me to do something that essentially is the right thing to do, then I would be on some level grateful for that.
Yeah. I guess
Um,
it's a bit of a balancing act, though, isn't it? Because you couldn't just come into a club and be demanding and go straight to the hierarchy and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? You need to change all of this." So you got to kind of take those steps to feel the place out, to make those connections and to understand the way things go. And I wonder if you could touch on that and how that evolved, but also how your like environmentally conscious and sustainability journey kind of developed and how that's kind of linked in with your football as well.
Yeah, like it's probably like a couple of different things. It's the human side that you alluded to is getting to know people, getting to know what they're interested in. If we have things where we're aligned and I can work with people and they're receptive, I think that does take time and that a lot of conversations. And then it's the more tactical aspect of it where you have to find out who can essentially pull the levers and who can push the button and make the actual decision. Because often you speak to really nice people who are like, yeah, we'll see if I can get that done. And actually their boss or their line manager is the person that actually makes the decision. So it's kind of, yeah, like getting to those people, which is definitely also like a bit of a process because you can't scare them off. You have to sort of like just be gentle with them, like on the outset. Um, but yeah, I think it's a little bit like my personal journey, I suppose, that it was kind of like building blocks. It was, seeing the documentaries like what the like classic ones like from recent times, like What the Health and Before the Flood and Cowspiracy and all those kind of ones, and then a few other niche ones, and then one of David Attenborough's ones. I can't remember, like Breaking Boundaries or something like that. It was really cool. And yeah, reading like articles. I think it's like just learning new things all the time, and I think that kind of maybe something that a lot of people could like do with is just ways of doing things a bit better all the time. Just little things like day to day things where you think, oh, I hadn't thought of
Yeah.
that. And so for me, it's kind of because I'm in a place now where I care so much about it and I'm driven towards it, and I'm now kind of in a position where I could potentially be called out for not doing the right thing because I speak so much about it publicly. Is that I'm kind of compelled to, as soon as something falls in my lap and say, "Oh, you could do this better," I'll be like, "Yeah, cool, done," or I'll at least try and do it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, it's just kind of sort of like a constant um, journey of just trying to be better personally, but also um, like trying to cope with being bombarded with emails from, because obviously, you know, me, yourself, there aren't many open like footballers, especially male footballers, openly speaking about it. But the women are just way better on this stuff. But unfortunately, they just don't have the same profile at the moment. Um, and maybe that's like also like in a sort of abstract way another reason for expanding the women's game, like increasing its profile, because women are just so much better at openly speaking about these issues in general and being better role models in general. But yeah, I feel that responsibility for sure. um, and I kind of, yeah, want to practice what I preach as much as possible, I suppose.
Yeah. I like that point. I found it really ironic almost in a sense that we're seeing society and all these extremes and climate breakdown and the destruction of nature in so many places across the world. And I do think that there's a more, yeah, it's just ironic almost, or just like, what's the word? divine timing, maybe, that the women's game is growing and is starting to get those audiences, and we are starting to get platformed. I think it's just our natural instinct to be more inclusive and more nurturing and
Mm.
understanding and wanting to. I think also we've just had to endure so much over the last few decades to try and get to where we are, that we want to lift other people up, that we want to bring other people into the conversation, that we want to take care of the world and the planet that we live on. And I think that that's I'm excited for that. I mean, we saw at the World Cup the first time ever a player-led action. It wasn't world changing, but it was a start of something exciting. So, how do you reflect on that, of what players are doing and what more they could possibly do in this space?
I think I've learned in recent years that even the really little things matter. Like everything matters. Like certainly everything you do publicly, but even things that people notice you doing that you don't necessarily shout about does matter, and it does influence, and it does have a butterfly effect. So I think that like the action of the offsetting of the travel from and making it public and being proud of it has a huge impact. And yeah, if the men can do something vaguely similar, I think it can have a massive impact. I mean, I'm making this case with the PFA at the moment that we can football can genuinely potentially be like one of the biggest factors in this struggle. I really do think that, and I do believe that, and I think that we're very lucky and privileged to be in a position where we're kind of on the inside of that, and we can try and force that. Feels like a little bit daunting in a sense, um, being a little bit alone in it at this stage, but um, yeah, I do think it's really exciting as well, and I feel like it's very easy to get quite like doom and gloom about everything, but I think it is quite exciting because pretty much everyone I speak to, even in the football world, are quite receptive, like to change, and a lot of it is like knowledge and information gaps. Like people are like, yeah, let's do that, and like, oh, but how do we do that? And then you have to go and try and find an expert like to tell us how to do it. It's a little bit kind of the process has gone at Wickham, to be honest. Like we've kind of like I've used my contacts through Football for Future and Planet League and all the guys that I've met in that space, and to try and help Wickham, like, but there kind of should be more of a sort of an official thing. I feel like to help clubs do move in that direction. But we've basically finished a sustainability strategy now, which is really cool. We've just installed electric car chargers at the training ground and the stadium, which I've, I'm very reluctant to take credit for stuff, but I feel like that just wouldn't have happened if I wasn't there.
Yeah, you weren't pushing for it and just like putting it on their agenda, right?
Yeah, totally, and being really annoying, like I said before. So yeah, like I do feel, and I very much, and I kind of, some people scoff at this. Like, obviously, being a professional footballer, people scoff. I say like I feel like a very normal person, um, and I just watched some Netflix documentaries and then started a journey, and it's led me to being the only sustainability person at the PFA, speaking at Glastonbury with you, um, and being ambassadors for football climate charities, um, and kind of yeah, like it's kind of just happened. It feels like, even though it's been like a long process of doing interviews, doing podcasts and all sorts of different things, and essentially saying yes to pretty much everything that I get asked to do. But yeah, and I feel like because we got to this stage, it's like, okay, so where can we go from here? And I do feel that like there is momentum growing for sure. Like certainly for me, like I feel like I'm starting to really make some headway now.
Yeah, I can see it, dude. You're really starting to impact where it counts as well. But I think it's really nice what you said too, where you brought it back to that individual action and educating ourselves. I think for me that was the start. Um, and and I think when you start implementing these small changes, you realize just how easy it is and how it actually clarifies a lot in your life. I think um, just cutting things out. Sometimes you get caught up thinking that change is going to be hard and you're going to miss out on things, but actually a lot of these changes just reduce the clutter. You stop buying silly stuff that like I think a lot of people don't even contemplate the stuff that they buy at times. I saw a ridiculous stat the other day that like 90% of things that are bought are in the bin within 6 months. And like,
Oh,
what?
I can definitely believe that with,
Yeah.
my daughter recently having a third birthday. I was just
Oh
like,
my god.
oh my God, like the amount of, I mean, like obviously super grateful, like really lovely that people buy her stuff, but, and she will love like playing with the toys and things like that. But you just think like, she's 3. Like she could probably have like one of these things and she'd be buzzing, and it wouldn't matter if
Nobody
there was
needs it.
nothing else. Like you almost like we kind of like almost we have at times like just hoarded stuff for like later birthdays or Christmases or whatever, because it's just too much, and you just think like this is a just general societal cultural thing that we have
Mm.
that is going to be quite tough to shift, I think.
Collectors, aren't we? Total like
Yeah, but I think there's the because obviously like you can get bogged down in, and I feel like I feel I have a lot of empathy more so now than maybe I used to. I was a bit younger, I was a bit more militant maybe. Like I feel like I have a lot more empathy for people now. I think you sort of find it with your own failings sometimes. Like there's moments where I'm just like, I should really go. I've spoken to you about this. I should really try and go vegan. I just love the cheese, and I'm just like, that's literally what the meat is to say to me when I'm like, maybe try and go vegetarian. Like, and it's just like I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, I do get it. But then there's like so many other things as well, which are like way more impactful.
yeah.
Um,
It's
recently I've been reading up about pension stuff, like because I was paying money into my pension over the years, and like obviously I have like a really nice guy who's my financial advisor, a friend of mine, um, and had some money in like a sustainable fund, like specifically. Um, but then there was this like stat I heard that was like, the average person has 30% of their pension invested in fossil fuels or something like
oh,
that. Like something like 20 to 30% invested in fossil fuels without their knowledge. And it's like 65% of people had no idea. And I would imagine it's more than that because I had no idea that was the case. Um, and so that's probably the next big thing for me is to try and divest my own pension scheme,
nice.
because obviously like you kind of just trust like that the people advising you, like they're obviously trying to make you the most money they can, um, but then things like that you don't really maybe countenance as like, oh, actually my money is going towards fossil fuels.
Yeah. It's similar with
um,
bank accounts too, right? And where you're banking.
Totally, yeah. And I'd already addressed that to some extent, but I was just because and then I donate money via high impact athletes as well, which is like they did the research on that is super
Any
impactful.
athletes out here, go check them out. They're great.
Yeah, and I was just blown away by how much impact you could have through that over and above your own individual changes. And then for some reason, I didn't think really about my own investments. I don't really know why. And then I came across Make My Money Matter, um, and they were saying that it can be 21 times more effective than anything you can do on an individual level, like to divest your pension, and obviously invest in
Yeah.
renewables, like
Yeah.
ethical investments and stuff. I was just like, oh my God. And it was, I think they're saying that the money that's currently held in pension schemes that's going towards fossil fuels um, is the equivalent of the UK's carbon emissions for a year. Like, and I was just like, oh my God. But like, it's not that surprising when you think about it because like no one really seemed, or like a big majority don't seem to have any clue that this is what's happening.
It's so shady, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
literally.
but kind of quite also quite exciting in a way because you think, well, if everyone starts finding out about this
Mm.
and everyone starts then going to their pension scheme and going, you need to sort this out, then that could be like a big turning point. Because like,
Especially footballers, right? And how much money they must have in those pension schemes.
well, you say that like, and that is true, but if you think about it, there are so many teachers, so many more teachers, so many more I don't know, like health professionals, for example, in terms of like bulk, and
Yeah.
all of their pensions are going in this pot. And if this pension pot, this massive, because like NHS is, I think, employs more people than virtually like any other body in the world. Like, so if this whole pension pot is going towards, and 30% of it's going directly to investing in fossil fuels, then it's just it's like a ridiculous amount of money. It's like um so yeah, I was just blown away by it. Wow. Like, but then if say if you know footballers or sports professionals or whoever started getting their pension schemes to divest, then that could have a massive ripple effect. I'm sure it would have so much like media coverage and would have a massive ripple effect across society, because then people be like, oh God, my investments are probably in fossil fuels, and my pension schemes probably, and the thing is as well is like, especially for people of our age, we ain't going to see our pensions for what, like 30 years probably, like, and that's way more than the window that we have to actually like address climate change effectively. So if we're not going to see it, like, then like it's 30 years worth of growth. Like, so, and there was the Church of England apparently, or like basically gone down this road of divesting from fossil fuels, which is really, I think that was like north of £1 billion like pounds. Um, and there's like, and there's also some research that showed that like um, if US pension schemes had like just invested in renewables instead of um, I may be misquoting this a little bit, but it was like they lost over $100 billion just by investing in fossil fuels. They were actually like pretty crap investments.
Wow. Yeah,
Um,
and that's phenomenal to hear. And yeah, I guess that's the thing, is like seeing these opportunities. And um like what you said too, like, about, it's not about perfection in our individual lives. I think it's about progress and finding the little bits that we can do and we can do effectively. But I think it's structural and societal change that we need to happen, isn't it? And I think finding avenues like that can make such a huge difference. Hello again. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. That was part one. Please make sure you tune in to part two. And if you really enjoyed it or you got something interesting out of this conversation, please share it around and help other athletes find their voices. Thank you.